right, everybody, we are getting into the first week of the football season. Thank goodness it is finally back. So today we have a very exciting show. We have Fire Chief Michael O'Brien from out of Detroit. He is also going to be taking a trip to the game. So we're very, very excited to actually see him. And we also have the one and only TJ Hockenson. So very good friend of the family, very good friend of the barn, very good friend from Iowa, all the things. Very proud of who he is and the progress that he's made over the summer. So you go, TJ. So before we start with both interviews, we just wanted to touch base again on some of the changes that we have made to this year's format and also say a few words on this weekend show. So as regular followers will know, and welcome back. Thanks for your support. Last year, we did a charity nonprofit focus each week where we selected a charity from the community where the 90s were playing that week. We would interview a staff person and then also a client or former client who had received services. Our effort was to share these stories of the nonprofits as well as the individuals who they helped. We had hoped to highlight some of the issues people struggling with, including suicide, drug addiction, homelessness, hunger, and mental illness. Each week, George and the fabulous Claire would also make a donation of $3,000 to the named charity.
So last year was great, and we enjoyed all those stories and the ability to help the nonprofits and individuals share those stories more broadly. This year, we're keeping the charity focus, but we also wanted to recognize the many veterans and or first responders who have served our country in their local communities with bravery and honor. For veterans, many are now back in the States making the transitions of life after one and oftentimes two or more tours of duty. First responders also face many challenges and stressors from their work. None more dramatically illustrates this than the tragic events of 9/11, which over the course of this weekend will be the anniversary as we honor the 20th year remembrance of that event.
With this weekly spotlight on veterans and first responders, we are asking our veteran or first responder to name a charity of their choice from their community to tell us about it. We will make a donation to that named charity. And in addition, this year, we are also providing tickets to allow them to, or in this case, three, to allow them to attend the game George and the Niners will be playing in, whether they are a Niner fan at home at Levi's or a fan of our opponent, in this case, Detroit Lions. We are very excited to meet them on the road. So we are super excited for this new format, all the people that we're going to be meeting, the stories that we're going to be sharing, and just to come back together as the Hidden Pearls podcast community. So with that, we're going to roll it right in and get George and TJ on. Hit it.
3, 2, 1. Action.
Welcome, Hidden Pearls podcast friends, families, and followers. We are so excited to be kicking off week one of the actual season. Let's go football, baby. So week one has 49ers going to Detroit to play the Lions. We are so excited to have our first season guest, the one and only TJ Hockenson. As you know, another great, strong, fabulous tight end out of the University of Iowa, all pro last year and looking for more this year. So thank you, TJ, and welcome to the Hidden Pearls podcast.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate it. George, you want to throw in a little bit more in that bio?
Boy, would I. I cannot wait to tell you all about my guy, TJ, who's your mama. Now, TJ from Iowa, went to the high school at Sheraton, and not a big high school, but TJ dominated there. I actually got to see him play basketball. I think it was your senior year against Riley Till, who's also in here. It was my first time seeing TJ being a freak athlete. Probably dropped 30 on Riley's face, but it is what it is. After Sheridan, TJ went to the University of Iowa, where I was lucky. I was a fifth-year senior. I had TJ Hockenson show up, and dude, actually looked very similar, just minus the long hair. So goofy looking, and still that big smile on his face. But became friends instantly. It was fun to have a friend like that, especially who was a freshman, and we definitely had a good time. We partied a little bit together, played some good football together. And then next thing I know, TJ is an 8th overall pick out of the University of Iowa. Woo, boy! Still owes me money for that, but it's okay. We'll get that to 8. Went to the Pro Bowl you went to the Pro Bowl last year too as well, right? Got that cool Pro Bowl jersey. Wow. So now with the Lions, new quarterback, new action. You got Tim Boyle there. Shout out Tim Boyle. Huge fan of the program. Overall, just looking forward to year number 3. Whoo! In Detroit, baby. Let's ride. TJ, welcome to the podcast. So excited to have you here. You and your beautiful hair. We're excited to have you and talk some ball.
My guy, I appreciate you.
I cover enough?
That was only the way that George Kittle could do it. Nice job, brother.
See, the only two things we'll come back to it. Do want to mention that as in 2018, he was also awarded the John Mackie Award as the nation's best tight end. So that was pretty cool. So we want to make sure we got that in. And then this year, in the NFL's list of 100 best players named by other NFL colleagues, TJ came in at, I think, 93rd. Is that right, TJ? Sounds right. So,
yeah, I think so.
Somewhere in there. So that's still pretty cool. And program at the Lions have you listed at 6'5", 243 ripping powerful pounds. So again, thank you. Yeah, you look girthy, man. That neck and shoulders is just busted out. Your summer program must have been pretty amazing.
Yeah, I at least got 10 pounds in the hair. So
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
All right, cool. All right, Emmy, you want to roll that?
All right, so let's take it a little throwback. Let's go back to Iowa for a little bit. So what was your favorite thing about your high school, maybe growing up in Iowa? Talk to us about that.
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, so I grew up obviously in Sheridan, Iowa. When I moved there in like 6th grade, small town. I think it's, put at 4,200 people and 0 stoplights in the city, in the town. I was only a mile away from my high school living. And so I, drove there every day. And it was honestly, growing up there was a blessing just because it's a small town. Everybody knows everybody. I still go back there and it's kind of crazy now. You still see people that you were in high school with. But yeah, I was very fortunate to grow up there, grow up in a town in Iowa, and then fortunate enough to later on go to the University of Iowa, which was a dream of mine. So yeah, it was definitely a blessing.
So because I hadn't been back to Iowa since before the pandemic, and I always get so defensive. So we're all from Iowa, and I always get very defensive when people are like, "Oh, you're from Iowa? Is it just cornfields?" And I'm always like, "No, like there's so many other things." So I just went back to visit my grandma, and we're driving, and I'm like, "It's all cornfields." I was like taking videos of it. I was like, "Nope, they were right." I was like, great people, and there are other things there, but we do a lot of corn. All right. So why, and soybeans. And so how did you get to Iowa and why did you choose to become a Hawkeye?
Yeah. So, going throughout out of high school, Iowa State was actually the first to offer me after my sophomore season. And then I kind of put them on hold. They kept trying to pressure me into committing and being like, all right, hey, we're going to take it off. And then they would start sending me stuff of how many tight ends they offered, and I was like, all right, this is, it doesn't matter to me. I kept waiting, kept not committing to them. And then going into my senior season, my junior year of summer, they offered me. And I kind of waited a weekend and I committed to Iowa just off of a week. And Iowa State had been waiting for a year and a half. And so I was kind of just waiting for that. That was my dream, obviously, going to the University of Iowa, being an Iowa kid. My I grew up, my brothers would take me to Shields on Saturday and be like, all right, here you go, buy a t-shirt, and I would always choose a Hawk t-shirt. And, I was always kind of pushed in that direction, even though my parents actually went to Iowa State, and that was kind of an interesting dynamic. But yeah, it was always a dream of mine to go to the University of Iowa. And, Coach Ferentz and everybody there, I was actually lucky enough to go in with a guy like George and learn from him. It was very, very, very fortunate in that sense.
Well, speaking of Shields, last time I was there, I saw some Hockenson and Kittle gear. So pretty full.
There we go.
Yeah, that's super cool. So talk to us a little bit about the Mackie Award. What was that like to win it?
Yeah, obviously, being voted the best tight end in the nation at that time in college football was a tremendous honor for me. I didn't go into that season because we had Noah on the team. We had a bunch of other guys, that were projected way higher than me. I wasn't even on the map that year. And so going into that season, I wasn't expecting to do that, to be able to be in that situation. And, I kind of just kept rolling. The ball kept rolling the first week. There was a couple plays out there that, I made. And then I just kept going. They kept throwing the ball to me. And it was like, all right, at the end of the year, it was like, okay, I'm having a good season. Let's see where this goes. And then I had a couple more tuds and some more yards. And it was kind of like, all right, I reached the finalist. And then there's a couple other guys in there, Caden Smith being one of them from Stanford. He was a finalist. And then, Coach Ferris called me up in his office. I think it was after the bowl game or before the bowl game, but after our last season game. And he was like, hey, sat me down and he's like, you won the Mackie. And I was like, oh man, it was a very emotional meeting, just, me and him in there. And, John Mack, that whole award, we went down to Atlanta and for the college football awards, it was a sweet week. And, just being able to meet the Mackie family and all those people for that award was a lot of fun. And, that was kind of going into that year, I had no idea that I was even going to be anywhere near that. And then later on, just being able to, end up being the number 8 pick and win the Mackie, it was pretty sweet. So
that's pretty good stuff, man. That's a really cool story. So that's a great year. And that was your 3rd year at Iowa, right? Didn't you come out after 3? Is that right?
Yeah, I actually redshirted my freshman year. So I was a redshirt sophomore that year. So I really had 2 more years, at Iowa after that. So
can you imagine being a this year?
No, that's what I would have been if I would have stayed. Yeah, that would have been nuts.
That would be crazy, dude.
I know.
It's cool. All right. Well, appreciate you sharing that for us. So I guess this is one other thing, because you mentioned your mom and dad being from Iowa State. How about just what's one of the either best or toughest lessons you learned kind of through your family?
Yeah, I think my family, they taught me a lot growing up. But I think the biggest thing, like I said, being from a small town was, kind of keeping your family close, but like your inner circle really like tight. I don't really, get outside of my inner circle. I care what people within me and people I really genuinely care about say. But other than that, like, I think, my parents really taught me at a young age was like, hey, family's first, friends are first. And then it's like, you just keep them close. You don't have to please everybody. You don't have to keep everybody close. Not everybody's your friend. And I think that was kind of a big thing, especially now, that helps me, like I don't try to please Joe Blow down the street, or I don't care what he says. I care people that I genuinely care about and is in my circle say. And, that's kind of the people that I hold near and dear to my heart. So I guess that was one thing that my family, my mom especially, really instilled in me.
And your mom was on the broadcast we did for the Haiti thing, and didn't she say you were her favorite child?
He did.
Yeah, I think that came out. I think you might have to fact check me, but I'm pretty sure that did.
Yeah, no doubt. So, okay, well, I think we already maybe touched on this. We're going to talk a little bit about, George, why don't you roll it, because you were the older statesman. Wiser, experienced dude. So when did you, what do you first remember about meeting old TJ? And then how about either an Iowa or NFL story about him? And then TJ, we'll come back to you and you can tell a George story if you got one.
Well, I just know, let's see, one of my earliest memories, actually, I was on a radio show this morning. They asked me about TJ Hockenson. They were like, yeah, you guys kind of know each other, right? And I was like, nah, not at all. Screw that kid. No, but one of my earliest, I just remember meeting TJ, and he, I don't know, reminded me of myself, just had a big smile on his face. He was just so happy to be at the University of Iowa, just excited for the opportunity. So I enjoy people that are, overly positive and overly happy. And you could just tell he was just so appreciative of the opportunity. And so there, and then I just remember summer workouts, he's a good athlete. Yeah, it is what it is. And then we get to like doing some 7-on-7 stuff, and he's like on field 2, and we're just watching, and he like mosses like 3 guys, like back to back to back, just drags it all right across like Josie Jewell's face. every linebacker that we have, every safety that we have just gets crushed by TJ, like literally every day. And I was like, I'm really happy I'm graduating right now because that dude's going to see the field a lot next year, going to play a lot. And so that's one of my Iowa memories. And I do remember we always used to party together, and TJ was always a good kid. No, he always made the right, like he was never, he always made sure football was like, hey, I want to play football, but I'm going to really enjoy myself. But he made sure football was a little bit more important than that. And so he always made good decisions, which I always appreciated too. And then NFL story. Wow. I'm just happy that TJ's in Nashville, Tennessee with me. I get to see him every single day. I get to hang out with him. Our dogs are friends. We get to golf together all the time.
The barn.
Have stuff together. It's just a blast. We have a good energy down there. Me, him, and Rob. We got a good group of tight ends down there. And, when you're around like all pro, you're around Pro Bowl, you're around guys that score touchdowns, you're around guys that live the right way. It holds you to a high standard because you want to make sure that you're living to that standard of those other guys. And that's why you surround yourself with people like that. And that's why I'm so happy that TJ's down there. We have such a good group that we all just we hold each other these high expectations. And that's why I'm so excited for this year, because I think all the guys that we train with are all about to go off. I mean, I always say my fantasy sleeper is TJ Hockenson and Jared Goff, because those boys are about to excuse my language, but those boys are about to get the ball going. So Hidden Pearls podcast, get 13 today. It's the only F word we can drop.
Or not, or maybe.
Or a couple.
Yeah, whatever. Well, cool. Yeah. And that's, so you brought that up. And so, yeah, TJ, within the last year or so, bought a place down in the Nashville area and then did off-season with us down at the barn, George's place out there. So was out there on a regular basis and worked out with speed drills and all that kind of stuff. So we can kind of come back to that too. But TJ, I want to give you a shot. What do you remember about meeting George and or any stories that are safe for telling for the podcast?
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember going in and George being in the back of the room with him, P-Car, I think Wiz was in the back with you. And I would always sit in the front of our meeting room, and Coach Woods would just hammer us, like us freshmen, just first year. We had no idea what was going on. These guys already knew the offense. They'd been in it for a couple of years, and it was like he'd be yelling at us and like, hey, what's this? Or what's this coverage? And yeah, no, there's a few stories that I was way off on a few of them. And I just kept getting crap from George in the back. He'd be in my ear. Are you serious? Are you serious? And it was just like, all right. But I mean, I remember going out and it was kind of crazy. You know how freshman year, senior year, they're talking to you. They're like, oh yeah, you're going to be able to play, right when you come in, all this stuff, you're going to be able to play. And I remember getting there and I'm like, there is no freaking shot I'm playing this year. I remember going in individual drills and George just like understanding what's going on. His routes were ridiculous. He was running a normal basic route in team period and just straight head moves. I'm pretty sure it was Josie, just up at top of route, just gives him one to the right. Josie bites it right behind him and just like George goes for 40 yards. And I'm like on a straight basic route, like stupid easy and just would always make it his own. That was kind of one thing that I always got from George was like your routes, you don't have to run them like they're written, and so that's kind of where I got all my stuff was from him my freshman year. And there was no shot, like I said, that I thought I was going to play that year. But then, I mean, going in the NFL, I think the biggest thing, I decided to go and declare and everything. And George was like one of the first people to text me and be like, hey, if you need anything throughout this process, let me know. And that kind of meant a lot, just coming from a guy like that, and he had already made it at that year. He just came off a record year. He didn't need to text me, he didn't need to do any of that. And that kind of just like, forthwith our friendship and just kept going. Love you, bro. But, and then just going down and I got hurt my rookie year and broke my ankle, had to have surgery. It was, pretty gruesome and it was a hard comeback. And I came back in early June. And George was one of the first people. I was texting him throughout the whole process of my rehab, all this. And he's like, so when are you going to be able to come down? When are you going to be able to run? When are you going to, and I was like, all right. So I just started being able to run. COVID happened, all this stuff. And then I was about to go down there. And then there's a scare with you guys that was like, oh yeah, they might all have COVID, So then I wasn't able to come. I had to delay it another week, but then I was finally able to come down there, and it was just like, this is where I want to be, like down in Nashville. Good vibes only. A lot of people, and just dudes working hard. And that was kind of like a blessing for me, just be able to have a guy like George, on my wing and always checking in on me. And, that meant a lot, and that's helped me a lot throughout my NFL career. So it's going to continue, I guess. Stay in Nashville.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, I appreciate you guys sharing that, and just that it really reflects kind of the power and importance of surrounding yourself with good people. That attitude does matter, and that we can control our own energy and what we bring to it. And so hanging out with those same guys. Kind of before we transition though, what about you guys both participate in Tight End U? Any kind of observations, reflections about that? I know people are still kind of curious about that whole deal. So how was Tight End U for you? TJ, we can start with you because you're kind of on a roll right now. And just that experience and how was it and all that kind of stuff. And then George, you can follow up a little bit.
Yeah, no, I actually really enjoyed Tight End U. I mean, that was a lot of fun. I think the biggest thing, I've been joking around saying that, I learned a lot how to drink, that week, but, and that is, honestly, it is a lot true. I mean, it was great to be able to like hang out with those guys outside of football, and understand who Zach Ertz is without a helmet on, who, Travis Kelce is without a helmet on, and just understand those guys off the field and actually be able to like make a friendship and kind of, meet those guys outside of football. And then, but then during the day, we came back and it was like, all right, let's learn about how to play this game. Let's learn what you do on an out route, how you read defenses, how you do different things. And that was really interesting to me. So, I mean, it was something that I really enjoyed being a part of. And I think a lot of guys, I think it's going to continue to grow every year. I mean, I think a lot of guys and a lot of position groups have asked me like, how was it? Was that cool? Were you able to connect with other guys? And it was like, yeah, so I think we really, as a tight end unit, we really started something for a lot of different positions because, everybody keeps asking me about it and everybody keeps wanting to do it. So I think it's a really cool tradition that we'll have going on.
So after the event, we sent out a survey, kind of like a blind survey saying like, how was it? What was your favorite thing? Like anything you'd rather have us covered or whatever, kind of the whole thing. And people like were super encouraging and supportive of everything. And the biggest, we're like, what do you want us to change? And everybody said that they wanted us to have later starts so that they could really embrace and not feel so hungover and guilty about actually drinking and partying, just because the camaraderie and like the friendships that they said they built, like some guys really went into it and just, like you said, like who is George Kittle without a helmet, and kind of finding that out and making those really good connections. George, you want to share anything?
Yeah, we only had one 9 o'clock day. Everything else.
I know. It's not like we were up super early.
But anyway, all good. George, tight end. What about tight end?
I mean, I'll touch on what TJ finished, the camaraderie thing. Like one of the cool things about like when we were meeting and stuff, the first day we like did some breakout sessions. And so you got to sit in a room or in a circle with a bunch of guys that you would never sit in a room with. So like I'm in a room with Zach Ertz, Logan Thomas, Jordan Matthews, I think Evan Ingram, maybe Dalton Schultz. Like we had like 5 or 6 guys in there that I've never sat in a room with before. And we just got to bounce ideas off each other. And Austin Hooper, I think, was in there. So like, just getting able to talk to these guys, it was so much fun because you hear their perspectives on things, and because everyone's in their own tight end room getting coached by their own tight end coach, or they're on different teams, they have different tight end coaches, but like you can only learn so much in a room, I think, and like you can only, you learn from your teammates and stuff, but like when you're in a room with a group of guys that are all on different teams, all have different coaches, all from different backgrounds, you just learn about like, I don't know, their outlook on games, their perspective of games, and I just really appreciated that because I feel like I got to know guys in a way I've never, met them before. And like Logan Thomas is one of my favorite players. Like just being able to talk to him, like TJ said that he's going to be an absolute blast because you knew him from Detroit, and I completely agree. He's a fantastic player, fantastic person. Just thoroughly enjoyed his friendship. But then like I'm totally for later starts so we can continue to hang out late at night. And it was fun. Like I got to meet Dallas Goedert, huge fan of him. Philadelphia's finest, and that was a blast for me too. So I'm excited to I'm really excited like every week this year now. Now I know the tight ends on every single team, and like that's cool for me. So I'm excited about that, and just getting to know everybody. And like TJ said, it's going to expand. It's going to get bigger. Hopefully next year it's like the whole NFL, like every tight end is available to come, and that's the plan. And so we'll make it available to everybody, and just try not to burn Nashville to the ground.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. That was really good. Yeah, and it was great to hear just the stories from the different guys. Travis Kelce, and I thought Greg Olson did a great job, and Mercedes and everybody that talked there. And so anyway, all very good. Okay. Well, thank you. All right. You ready? Go.
Yes. So TJ, as you were growing up, who was one of your favorite sports characters? Like, who was somebody that you were very impressed by or kind of modeled your play after? Is there anybody that stood out for you want to share?
Yeah, so I grew up a Chiefs fan just because I was only 2.5 hours away. So my brothers always lived in Kansas City, and I was a tight end at that time. So just like looking up to Tony Moyaki was there, and that was kind of they weren't Kansas City wasn't great, and that was Tony Moyaki. He was one of the bright futures of that team, and I was at that game where he had a back of the end zone. He had one-handed catch, and I just remember that like clear as day. And then just who he was, he obviously went to the University of Iowa, and just like he did a lot with the community of Kansas City, and he was just a good dude, So I think that was kind of somebody that I always looked up to, and being able to cheer on Sundays. So.
That's sick, TJ. That's pretty unique. I like that.
Yeah.
Look at you. Is it my turn now?
If you have anybody you wanted to add, but we did this, you did it last week too.
I know. Let's see. I usually do like Bob Sanders or Dallas Clark. I will say this. Besides my dad, the person that made me fall in love with football was the one and only Ron Dane, University of Wisconsin, 1999 Heisman Trophy winner, running back for the Wisconsin Badgers. I got to go to all of his games, basically his entire career. Bruce would bring me to, because I was born in Madison, and got to go to all those Wisconsin football games, and watching a big man tote the rock and just run through people, but then also have like the finesse ability to make guys miss. I love that. I appreciate it. And I don't know, like Jimmy G always says, he feels like a gladiator in the arena, like when he plays football. Like that's his mindset, which I really appreciate that mindset. But when you're out there and you have an entire stadium chanting your name, like that gave me goosebumps back then when you would hear the whole everyone in Madison, Ron Dane. I mean, like you'd get up on the edge of your seat waiting for the next Ron Dane run. And so like he was someone that made me fall in love with like the stadium aspect of football. And so it's like when you get that, it's chills. And so that is one of the guys that inspired me in football.
George, is there, like, when you think about the Ron Dane chant, because I still remember it vividly, like being in the stands when we were little.
Yeah.
Is there and TJ, this can go for you too. Is there like a chant, like a TJ chant or a George chant? Like, have you guys thought about that, or what you wish the fans would chant in that way?
Oh, as long as they're cheering.
Should we start something?
As long as they're cheering and not booing, I'm pretty happy.
I would say the same. Yeah, I don't know. I've never really thought about that. It's kind of cool. Yeah.
I mean, the Ron Dane one is so good.
It is. I mean, dude, it's electrifying. I'm going to YouTube it now, see if they have like any of that video or audio available.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look and splice it. Yeah, but they did a great job too. The announcer would say after the carry, they go Ron, and then the whole stadium would say the last name, and it was really good. And the Badgers were very, very good during that time period. So it was those were fun games to get into. So, all right, very cool. All right, where are you?
Ooh, let's skip that one. So TJ, what is a secret talent that you have that people may not know about?
He doesn't brush his teeth.
Ooh.
Oh, that's fraud.
Getting clear.
I think one thing, I'm really good at yard games. So I mean, bags come at me. I promise I'll win. We actually have some in the locker room, and I haven't lost, to be honest with you. So,
dude, is it
right.
from that one
CAA?
Yeah, dude. We have like 6 boards set up. We said competitions. Me and Dwelly we lost one time. That was it. And it was Trent Williams just hit a heater and didn't miss a shot the entire time. But we won like 8 in a row. We were sweeping the table. It was awesome.
Yeah, you'll have to ask JG because he thinks I'm the best bags player there are. So, yeah.
Who thinks that?
JG. He saw me. I think I went off like 4 in a row, 2 times in a row, and he was like, "Yeah, you're the best bag," and then he walked away. But then I think I was awful after that. But still,
well, what a great idea.
Oh yeah, I know. I was like, you need to get your guy on that.
Dude.
You need to get Pete to send us one.
I know. Come on,
Yeah,
Pete.
Pete. Come on, Pete.
Put Rubicon Sports right across the thing. That'd be sweet.
Yeah. Come on, send him in.
George, what's one of TJ's traits or skills that you admire the most, and why?
Hmm.
I want to hear this.
All right. I think I got one or two. All right. Football wise, one of the coaching points that like I've heard over the course of my career and like from coaches and other players is that when you're running routes, you don't want to have the longest strides. And this guy, TJ, has the longest strides going in and out of cuts, but he does it so quickly. It looks so slow, but if you time it up for someone else, it looks slow, but it's the exact same speed or faster. And it's just because no one really runs routes like that. Like he has a big step and then his back foot drags as he's changing directions. And like I've heard for 10 years, come on, don't drag your back foot, run in and out of it, 2 quick steps, get out of your break. And he does these long strides and he's just so fluid, quick and out of his cuts. And I don't know if I don't think he does it on purpose. I think it's just something he's always done his whole life and it just works really well for him. So that is one thing that I think is awesome because it's very unique. You don't see that a lot. And it totally messes with defenders because it looks slow, but then the next thing you know, he's 2 yards ahead of you and that's wide open in the NFL. Another trait that I love about him, just got that damn smile on his face all day long. I just appreciate that because I don't have a lot of bad days, but if I'm ever having a day where I'm like, I'm not a 10, I'm like an 8 or something. I look and see TJ and he goes, "Hey, what's up, dude?" Just the biggest smile on his face. I'm like, I'm gonna have a great day today. I appreciate that too.
TJ, because I'd not, we watched on TV and stuff at Iowa and all that during those years, afterwards. But when I got to see a tight end you on the field, I got to say the same thing from George. It's like kind of elusively, it's a little bit, I kind of thought of you after I watched you really run and that you reminded me of like a surfer, not just because of your hair and all that stuff, but no, really, it's like there was kind of an energy to the way in which you run and it was so fluid and connected. And it wasn't that sudden jerky stuff, but it had an explosiveness to it. So anyway, it was really fun. That's when I really loved about tight end U was seeing all these different guys, their physiques, how they ran and how different everybody was, but yet how their skill sets all kind of fit into the game in so many beautiful ways. So, but it was really fun watching you play. So that was really fun.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Okay. Well, rolling on about all that. So we have a kind of a unique fascination with mental prep. So I just kind of threw you an open-ended, just wondered, so we're kind of mindfulness based, do some meditation, talk about affirmations, visualization, all that kind of stuff. So just kind of curious, you don't have to go super deep with this, but just wonder kind of, over the length of your career and kind of now, what are some things that are important for you as far as the mental game? I know, probably watching film and doing all that kind of stuff, but I just mean, getting your mind right, if you have a bad play, that kind of stuff, how do you reset or any of those kind of tips that you've learned along the way?
Yeah. So my sophomore year at Iowa, I took a yoga class, and every day I did it throughout the season. It was a full length, long, and we would spend like 15 minutes a day just in what is it, Jakrana or whatever, where you meditate at the end. I don't know, what is it called, Emma?
Savasana.
Yeah. Zavasana, yeah, where you meditate at the end, and that actually helped me a lot. Just like going through that and. I don't know that I noticed it at the time, or like really related it to that. But that was one of the best years I had playing. And then fast forward, like Coach Doyle was one of the guys that brought Headspace to me. So that's an app that you download and it kind of just talks to you. And so then I kind of got into that and kind of got away from it. But then when I was down in Nashville and with you guys and I kind of learned about affirmations and I talked to Robbie about, how you talk to yourself and all that. And then I got back into Headspace. So I've been doing that for, I did it all off season, and now I'm really starting to hone in on it. And I actually did, 10 minutes before I got on here. It was just to clear your mind and kind of realize, what's going on. But I think the biggest thing for me is just like putting everything in perspective, is like football is not your whole life, even though sometimes it seems like it is. And I think when you realize that, and like when you go about life in that way, it takes a lot of stress off of it, and it kind of, sets you up for success, because not everything that you do on the field defines who you are, and I think that's something that has helped me is like, hey, maybe I didn't win this rep, but I'm going to win the next one, and just kind of being able to put that behind you, and just because it kind of takes everything, all the pressure off of yourself, because it's just a game, that you're playing. And that's kind of something that I've learned is like, don't take it too serious, because you're still having fun and you're still doing it. So that's always helped me take a bad play and put it behind me, and that's usually how I go about it. So that's helped me a lot.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's really, and that's that balance we always talk about. You want to lean into it. You're obviously aspiring to, do great things and be very successful. But at the same time, if you lean in too hard and you're really reaching and grasping for it, then it's elusive and it will leave you. So it's kind of interesting that way. And I really appreciate the comment about separating doing from being, you know what I mean? And so you can't tie your entire identity and your sense of self-worth to what's accomplished on the field or not. On both ends. If it's bad, you don't want to be too attached. And if it's super good, if you get so attached, you're going to lose yourself within that whole mess as well. So being comfortable about just being who you are and comfortable in that framework, and then letting the doing take care of itself. So, great. Thank you very much for sharing that. Georgie, anything you want to kind of tweak, add on, or share?
Well, no, I think TJ did a fantastic job. He had a lot of things on the head right there. I mean, you touched on whether it's a yoga and meditation to the headspace thing. I'm a calm guy myself, but I mean, anytime you can just take a couple minutes and just close your eyes and breathe for a little bit. I mean, it could be 60 seconds, it could be 30 seconds, 10 minutes, whatever it can be, but just taking a little bit to yourself and just breathing, it kind of just resets everything. And it, I don't know, it just always feels like the pressure is taken off of your shoulders. Like there's just a weight lifted or like a brick let go of, like you drop it out of your backpack and just a little bit of weight off your shoulders. So, I mean, anyone out there, just give it a shot, breathe a little bit, smile once or twice a little bit more, and you'll have a better day.
And for those of you interested, this week's Mindful Monday talked about how to find calm in the face of stress and anxiety. So it's only a 4.5-minute clip, but gives you 4 steps to finding calm in that space. So anyway, if you need any extra bonus. So, all right, excellent. Well, it's now time for many of our fans, followers, and friends' favorite part of the show, the fashion preview. All right, let's roll.
All right, GK, let's kick it off with you. So let's talk a little bit about, actually, TJ, you're our guest. We'll go first. So, George, you look fabulous right now. I wish everybody could see your face. Okay, TJ, talk to us about game day fashion, maybe how it's progressed. What are your vibes for this upcoming season, and what do you have to show us?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm looking forward to this upcoming season. My rookie year was tough. I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't really put too much effort towards that sense, but the more I've gotten around George, the more I've learned that I have to. So,
Sorry.
I got stitched by Mitch. I got his thing, so he's sending me some stuff, and it'll be good. So I'm really excited.
You guys have to wear suits with the Lions?
Not always. I don't think for home games, but I think for away games we're gonna have to.
It's not terrible.
No,
you live
you
with
guys
that.
don't. Though.
All right, and you're going to be decked out. And then you did bring a particular item of clothing to share with fans. One of your favorites.
I got some J's that I usually wear. These are my favorite pairs of J's. So they got Jordan's all his newspapers and stuff along the print. And anyway, you'll see those throughout the season. But those are definitely one of my favorite pairs. Shout out Nike.
All right.
George, what do you got?
All right. So this is a pair. I got it back in during OTAs for my favorite store out here in San Jose called Fix Kicks. That's a plug. That's a free plug. They are incredible. They hooked me up with a lot of my shoes. But so they had this guy with his little taste. they bought like $50,000 worth of dunks from this guy who's keeping them in a warehouse or like a storage unit, who's been buying them since like 2002. And he just buy shoes and put them in the store. And so then he resold them. So I got a couple pairs of shoes from like, I think these are 2006. These are Dunk Highs. They're the Boba Fett limited edition. And I think they released, I think it's 06, but they came in a brand new box, never before worn. And so these are like 15-year-old shoes, and I'm absolutely in love with them. I've been a huge fan of the Dunk Highs recently. I don't know why. They just look a little bit different than the Jordan 1s. These are the Dunk Lows I'm trying to hop into, but these are very pretty shoes. They're gorgeous. I'll be wearing these a bunch.
They're gorgeous.
Gee, what makes them Boba Fett? So Boba Fett being the bounty hunter for Star Wars, right?
I think it's the color coordinated. I think it's from the yellow.
Okay.
I think it's just their Star Wars limited edition one.
Neat. Okay. I like
They're
it.
not the ones I are though. I want to get the chunky dunkies. Remember the ice cream ones? I want to get those are a little pricey though. So TJ, my birthday is October 9th, and we'll call her.
Is that what it is?
Size 13.
Okay. Very cool. All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you. I'm just going to do a little bit. We got a game coming up this weekend. So Niners and the Lions kick off to the very first game of the 2021 season. So we're excited about that. So I'll just do a blurb on a little history, and then I know we're not going to go in too deep. So maybe just a little what's going on with the Lions a little bit and all that. But anyway, so the Lions and Niners have met 67 times, if we didn't know that, 2 postseasons included. Niners lead the series 38-28 with 1 tie. The last game between the two teams was 2018 in Cali. The Niners won that one. The last Niner trip to Detroit was in 2015 with the Lions coming out on top on that one. So, DJ, you're our resident Lions expert. Obviously now kind of going into your 4th year and all that. You got a new quarterback and anything. So I know nothing too intense at all, but just, what's the vibe? How things going? How's camp? And tell us a couple of people to look for as far as kind of some other studs on the field that we should be paying attention to.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all really excited, about this year. There's kind of a new energy in the building. Obviously new coaching staff and just trying to make football, like I said, a game, and kind of just coming to work and having fun. I think that's the biggest thing that we're trying to do, and obviously still taking it seriously, but having fun. And I think we're moving in the right direction. JG's been a great aspect and an asset to our team. In the locker room, on the field. He's able to do a lot of things that I think people don't really realize that he was able to do. And just having a guy like that, in the locker room is a lot. It's really cool to have that aspect. I think there's a couple guys that you can look forward to. Amani Oruwariye, corner. He's a guy that can play ball, really really good in coverage, and can tackle it up in space, and that's one of my best buds on the team, and I think he's gonna have a big year. So I think, like I said, we're all excited for this year, and obviously get that jersey swap this week with George and get it rolling.
Hockenson jersey, baby.
That's gonna be good. Yeah.
I got to bring 2 because I need a Tim Boyle jersey. That TB12, man. Tim Boyle, number 12. Detroit Lions.
TB12, baby.
All right. Well, George, I know you've been chatting on some other channels and all that, but any little Niner update you want to give as far as we're looking at the Niners or to the Lions and where things at and how's the mood? What's the vibe?
I mean, vibe's high. I was just so excited this year is that like our whole team stayed healthy throughout training camp. So like we could actually like compete against each other every day. The offense was in a huddle every day together. Like that's what was nice. Like last year we had guys in and out of it, including myself. And it just like, it's hard to just continue to build, that camaraderie. But like when you're in there together, you just, build that flow, you give that, that good practice flow. And I'm excited about our offense. I think there's a lot of toys that Shanahan can play with, from wide receivers, tight ends, running backs. Raheem Mostert runs a 4-1. So like good luck to anybody that takes an angle on him. Like you just got to meet him at the end zone, I guess. But then like, what I'm excited for, I'm really excited for our secondary this year. I think besides the fact that they all just changed their number to 1, 2, 3, 4, which is super sick. So cool. Besides that,
so hard.
Yeah, it's so cool, right?
So hard to know. It's so hard to know. Like, I don't know who the heck the safety in the corner is anymore. I'm like, what the hell?
So I'm excited about that. My guy to watch this year is Jimmy Ward. Number one, he's our safety. He's a freak athlete. I had some great battles with him in camp. TG, you'll probably get to go into him a little bit here and there, but he's just so fast. He's so athletic. Like, you go back and watch tape, like, he just, like, they'll put him on a tight end or they'll put him on their slot receiver, and he can be physical or he's faster than you. And so, like, I appreciate that. And then he's a guy that my first 2 years didn't get a lot of love because he kind of got hurt, but he's our longest tenured 49er. I think he's in year 8, Jimmy Ward. Yeah. And so anybody that lasts longer than 5 years in the same team is doing something right. So I'm excited for him. I hope he gets his first, I hope he gets some accolades and stuff this year because he deserves them. But I'm very looking forward to him.
Oh, very cool. And then if you have one, and if you don't want to go there, I don't want to do too much football, but we'll wrap it up with this. Just like one key to the game for Lions and one for the Niners. If you're really focused on something, what would you say?
Well, the number one key, which is something that I have learned in the last 3 years, is the number one decider. Actually, this is funny. I'll give you a little pop quiz too. So the number one decider in football games is turnovers, right? So if you have 0 turnovers and the other team has 1, you have like a 93% chance to win. And then, like, the more, like, if you have 4 turnovers, you have like a 6% chance to win, right? So, like, that says the highest, like, the biggest effect on games is turnovers. Do you want to know what the number 2 most important thing of a football game is in the last 10 years?
Tight ends.
Explosive plays.
No.
Either time of possession or most yards rushing.
Who finishes with the ball at halftime?
Oh.
So in the last 10 years, they looked at who has spent, like, so, like, you go in, if you don't have to score, but if you finish with the ball at halftime, your chances of winning are like 80% or something like that. It's insane. I have no idea. Like, they pulled up the stats and, like, literally last 10 years, like, so, like, that's why, like, New England got known for, they would, they always kick off first. They'd get the ball after the second half. And so they would always they'd keep the ball at the end of the half, kick a field goal, maybe score a touchdown, or just keep the ball so the other team doesn't score. Because let's just say there's 4 minutes left in the game, TJ, or in the halftime. You keep it for all 4 minutes, you kick a field goal, you go up 3 points, and then you get the ball to the second quarter or in the third quarter. Well, your offense, the opposing offense, hasn't touched the field in 25 minutes. There's no flow. You're cold. Your defense is fresh. Like, your defense is playing a brand new game finally. And so, like, that's one of the things, and I didn't really think about it, but if you don't get because I've been a part of those games where I'm not, like, you're there and all of a sudden you're just like, well, I haven't touched the field in 25 minutes. Like, what the heck's going on? It definitely messes with you. But that was key to the game. Keep the ball then and don't turn the damn ball over.
Okay. All right. TJ, you want to add anything, or you got something?
I don't know. That was pretty good.
Good.
Like, you killed it.
All right. Well, we can kind of roll with that. Well, then, last thing before we go, guys, and TJ, I just want to say thank you again for taking time for us. This year, we've got a partnership with a group called MVP, called Matching Vets with Pros. And throughout the season, we're going to be hosting a veteran to tell their story. And last year, as everybody might know, we honored a charity and made a donation. And so this year, our veterans who we're going to focus on, they're going to pick a charity from their locale, and that's who we're going to donate to. So we're really looking forward to that. In honor of this week's 20th remembrance of the 9/11 event, so the game's on the Sunday the 12th, but obviously on Saturday when this podcast is coming out is 9/11. So for the first game, we ended up doing first responders. And so our guest will be Michael O'Brien, who is the fire chief with Brighton Area Fire Authority just outside of Detroit. So we're super excited to have him on, and he'll be sharing with us just a little bit about some of his reflections from being on the force back when 9/11 happened and some of the ramifications with that. So, and just part of our mission here is to kind of talk about some of the stories around social justice and environmental issues. And with Hurricane Ida hitting New Orleans and ripping through all the way up to New York, there's a lot going on. So I guess, TJ, we just like to close a little bit about kind of just wondering, like, what do the Lions like to do as far as, kind of charity that way, or if you're involved in something up there, and just kind of a little bit about that role in your life, if you don't mind sharing just a little bit about some of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the Lions do a really good job with nonprofits and kind of working with kids around the city. I think DLA is a big one, Detroit Lions Academy. It's for kids that, based on their circumstances, really can't, go to a school, or that, they're behind in school. Say they're supposed to be in 8th grade and they're really in 5th just because of the circumstances, whether they're, moving to house or can't get to school. And I think, that the Lions do a really good job with, transportation and trying to get those kids, because, some of them live 45 minutes away from that school, and, they'll have a bus come pick them up, or, they'll give them a bus pass, or, and just seeing how dedicated they are in trying to get these kids educated, and get them off the streets, I think is a really, really cool thing. One thing that I work with is Warriors Rising. That's a veteran program that a lot of veterans go in, and it's really they try to keep it from handouts, and not just giving these veterans money, but helping them start a business and helping them create a lifestyle for themselves. So if they have an idea, they're they go and they get them patents, get them started, get them workers, and try to keep veterans helping veterans. And I think that's another really cool nonprofit that, I'm able to work with and kind of keep close to my heart. So, I think there's a lot of different nonprofits that you're able to get, close with. So.
Yeah, well, appreciate that. So thank you for sharing that. I don't know, George, you want to add anything on that? I know you've been on you're always on the show, so you talk a lot about some of those things, but well, let's close with this one. We like to close then. And TJ, just in that spirit and the connectedness that you have now in Detroit, I'm sure, a huge fan base and all that kind of stuff. And with that comes some responsibility and those things. But what are some of the things that you're seeing or experiencing that kind of gives you hope, as we're moving forward into the 21 season, either with football and or just kind of on the broader scale?
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of people, with social media now, there's a lot of people that, have a say in things. And I think, one thing that I've started to see, especially, is just people being positive on that, and starting to realize, the effect that you have throughout, social media and other things. So I think, one thing I usually try to do and is just try to keep negativity off of that, and I think there's a lot of people that are starting to realize how negative social media can be, and just trying to spread positivity on that, and I follow a lot of accounts that, like we talk about as meditation and things, that really help affirmations and just being able to talk to yourself. Cause I think that's a really, scary place for some people. And, but I think, the more I've seen it and the more I've, come across it, I think they're starting to spread positivity and starting to realize that, that it is a scary place and it doesn't give everybody, a voice, but how you use it is really important. So I think, people are starting to realize that.
That's great. So thank you. Yeah. Being kind doesn't cost a thing. So having a smile on your face and bringing good energy. And so, George, any hopeful news from you?
Well, this is what makes me hopeful, Bruce. I'm glad you asked. Football's back. People are excited. We just had our first week of college football. Stadiums were electric. The fans are back. It's going to be so much fun this year. Like, this is going to be one of the best years of football for just the sport itself, just because of how excited people are, because it was taken away from them for an entire year. And I think people are just going to probably go too overboard with a lot of it, but I'm just excited to be able to play in front of fans, and it's going to feel like being a gladiator again. It's going to feel like you can feel the crowd. Like, I mean, we were sold out for our first preseason game. That's never, like, we don't do that. Like, what are we doing? And so I'm just so excited about that. Really, I've missed the fans a lot. I was totally lying last year, and I was like, it is what it is. It's not going to affect you too much. It sucked without fans, because like the most fans I ever played in front of was like, it was just a family section in Arizona, and it was literally like 80 people. That was the most fans we ever played in front of the entire season. So that was tough for me. So I'm very excited about that. And, we played at some fun places this year. Like, I've never played at Detroit before. I get to play at Philly. I know that place is just going to be loud. I played there my rookie season, but we lost by 57,000 points. CJ got his shoe knocked off by Fletcher Cox. It was awesome. But I'm excited to go back there into Philly, and I'm just really excited for football. And I know how much the country loves football, so people are going to be happy. Fans are going to be fighting, scrapping, drinking Bud Light. It's going to be a great.
Rocking, right? That'd be great.
Oh,
all right. That's all good. Emmy, we'll give you the closing part. So again, thanks, George, taking time. Thank you, TJ. Wish you the very best. Stay safe, all that kind of stuff. We look forward to seeing you. We'll be cheering for you tangentially through your game and all season. So really appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. Emmy, any final words on hope or otherwise?
I think I just got to go with the football thing. I think, especially just coming off of Tight End U and getting to meet so many people and feel like we actually have like very good connections, and then all the magic that happened at the barn all summer. I feel like we have this very tight football family, and everyone's healthy and everyone's so happy, and to be able to see them play and kind of see the accumulation of all the hard work. I'm very excited.
Cool. All right.
What about you?
I got one more for you.
Oh, good.
Mark Andrews for his new contract. He got on his birthday, 4-year, $56 million, $14 million a year. Congratulations. That is so cool. Again, opening the door, kicking down the door for tight ends all across the nation, raising that standard, baby. Congrats, Mark.
Oh, that's good. I hadn't seen that. That's great. Congratulations.
Baby.
That's good. You're going to be up this year, aren't you, TJ?
We'll see. Hopefully. I'm going into my third, so I got 2 more in my contract. We'll see.
We'll see. I don't know. Market's going
with the 5th option.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the 5th round option, you still get paid like $10 million. Like, it's not that bad.
Yeah, we're good. It'll be fine.
Yeah, you're going to be just fine.
Just fine. Okay. All right, gentlemen, you guys have a super great day. Thank you very much. Again, we're excited to get this out, and we look forward to this season and talking with everybody more. Thank you, TJ. Bye, Georgie.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Take 2.
3, 2, 1.
Action.
Welcome, everybody, to our second interview of our week 1. To start off this season, 2021, we chose to start with a community safety and first responder from the Detroit area. We are honored to have with us Fire Chief Michael O'Brien of the Brighton Area Fire Authority. A hearty welcome to our first responder, Michael O'Brien. Welcome to the show.
Michael.
Hey, guys. Good to see both of you.
All right. Well, it's always good to be seen at my age. But anyway, all right. A little bio on Michael, then we'll get into that a little bit more. So he is the fire chief at the Brighton Area Fire Authority in Brighton, Michigan. He is active in many state and national associations, including past president of the Michigan Association of Fire Chiefs, and is currently serving as board member with the International Association of Fire Chiefs. Beyond his role as a fire chief, he is a strong advocate of fitness for the fire service and is a co-owner of Kensington Valley CrossFit in Brighton, Michigan. And he is also a lifelong diehard to the blue Detroit Lions fan. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. But anyway, so we're thrilled to have him on the show. And so, Michael, we appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay. So let's see. So we got the Brighton Area Fire Authority. I sent you a little bio on this and I had all the years wrong. So I'm not going to say any of them. You can kind of talk about it if you want. Anyway, it's a long time. So tell us a little bit about what the Brighton Area Fire Authority is. I think you have 4 stations, but I'm not sure. But you can kind of fill people in on that and kind of the number of them, folks on staff and all that kind of stuff, and then how long you've been there.
Sure. Yeah. So the Brighton Area Fire Authority, we're halfway between Detroit and Lansing. It's pretty much suburbia. We have your typical Main Street USA, up to 400,000 or 500,000 square foot commercial buildings, hotels. We've got big box and homes and subdivisions. And at one point, we were one of the fastest growing areas in Michigan. It's kind of just through the last couple of years, it's not so much, but pretty much suburbia. 5 fire stations, around 72 square miles. So we're a fire authority, which is a little different in a sense. In about 1999, 3 communities came together and put their fire departments into one bucket and created a fire authority. So as opposed to like reporting to a mayor or a city council style government, we have our own elected board, and it allows us to kind of spread out those assets and resources about a big area. But really, it's a beautiful place to work. Livingston County is just absolutely beautiful. And we have about 70 staff. We do fire EMS, and we stay relatively busy. Post COVID here, we're running about 20% over our call volume from last year. So crews experiencing a little bit more demand. And as fire chief, I kind of get to do a little bit of everything. I don't go on as many calls as I used to, but really over the years, spent some time working with our fire marshal on codes and standards and keeping people safe in that environment, to all the crazy stuff that fire chiefs do, like budgets and, keeping my bosses happy, as well as just, working with our crews and making sure we get them what they need.
Okay. Well, very good. All right. So you've been fire chief actually 10 years then, is that right?
Yeah, 10 years. And I'm going on I started in 1995, if you believe it. But chief for the last 10.
Okay. So your story, because I tried to follow it around a little bit. So maybe, I guess what I was curious about, you don't have to go into all the details. I know you had a couple stops before Brighton. So what happened and what drew you into getting into the field? And then maybe just run us through that kind of coursework and take us back up to Brighton.
Yeah. So I was in high school and I was going to go into construction management at Michigan State University. And at that time frame, I was picking up my tuxedo for prom, ran into a person I played high school football with, and I asked him what he was doing, and he tells me he's doing this fire department thing. And I'm like, yeah, I need to go do that. And so pretty much after I graduated high school, I was what's called a paid on call, or a lot of people know them as volunteers, right? So I was a paid on call firefighter for Northville Township, and went through the academy, went and got my EMT, my paramedic. And I think when you join the fire service, your mom thinks one thing, and that's you're going to get hurt or die on just about everything you go on. And I had to promise my mom that I would still get my college degree. And so in the background, I kept working. When you're 18, you can do incredible things. So fire academy, going to college, I ended up going to Eastern Michigan University. I got a bachelor's degree in public safety administration from them. And it's kind of like that working adult. So I really, as I kind of got into my career on 24-hour shifts, it allowed you a lot of flexibility. So you work a day off, work off, work off 4. And so it allowed me to go to school and get my degree while I was working. And it was really a cool thing. So Eastern Michigan is where I graduated from. And I kind of moved around a little bit early in my career, spent some time in a town called Farmington Hills, which is just outside of Detroit. And Farmington Hills, I was kind of like the training guy, and it was called a staff lieutenant, but it was like the neatest job. You were told to go to all the real big incidents and kind of work as a firefighter and keep everybody well prepared. It was arguably one of the more fun jobs I had. And then I came over to Brighton as their fire marshal. And in a couple of years, I ended up being fire chief. So it has been an awesome ride. I've enjoyed so much of it, and each of it's been a little different, but deep down in my core, I still love going to calls and working alongside our crews, even though they don't always want the boss there. It's a lot of fun to be in the trenches and work alongside them.
Okay.
Well, and so you've been there for 14 years now. It's quite the career. So what has kept you in it, and maybe what's the most satisfying part of your job?
Since this is kind of football related, I've come to this, I think our why changes a lot as we go through our careers, right? So if you probably would have asked the dumb 18-year-old Mike O'Brien, I probably gave some really lame answer. And it was very generic of why I wanted to be a firefighter. And now, right, as chief, I think I relate it to coaching. When you're coaching like high school football, you really do get this group of uncoordinated young men, and you need to make a team out of them. And you got to make them killers, and they got to be well conditioned and attention to detail and all those things. And I think so much of that has blended into being fire chief, right? We have some outstanding human beings that commit, and we have a lot of moving pieces. And there is no doubt that building a team has really kept me kind of in that part of being a chief. I love when our staff does fantastic things. I love when you see how the hard work over a long period of time, whether it's a new recruit in an academy, whether it's our senior officers, when you see the whole puzzle piece come together at a fire ground, at a critical incident, very rewarding. But not many people know how much hard work really went into that to see that success. And, there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that our crews do. And so if you were to ask me now, I love the challenge. I love the complexity. Deep down inside, I love the chaos and making some kind of reason out of it. And I don't think I was always that way. I think it's just changed and it's evolved, and a lot of self-reflection as you get there.
Yeah, no doubt. And the analogy with athletics, I've been a college football coach, high school football coach, and the like. And there is the reward of having an incoming freshman at the college level or high school, whatever, and then watching them grow physically, but then more mentally and emotionally as they start to adapt to the more demands that you place on them as becoming a member of the team, and then trying to coordinate that growth with what you need out of them as part of that team. So really a lot of analogies there. So, and that is a really rewarding experience, and see not only the individual kind of manifest and become their very best, but also as they make that contribution and join hand in hand with the team members. So that's pretty rewarding. I just have to go back. One thing you said, this is just me not knowing a thing. What's the difference between fire chief and fire marshal?
Good question. So in the US, right, typically your head of the fire department is the fire chief. And sometimes they retain the role of fire marshal, but typically our fire marshal is responsible for things. It now has a sexy title called community risk reduction. So outside of the fire and response environment, how do we reduce the impact of fire on our community? So typically that's through fire code, building code administration. So our staff is doing plan reviews, inspections, pre-planning events, working with the community. We have a very robust smoke alarm program that they manage. We've had a goal to get in all of our homes and make sure they have working smoke alarms. It's been a big issue for us, and Brighton's probably installed more smoke alarms. There's about 2 communities ahead of us in the state of Michigan, Grand Rapids and Detroit. And we're not near their side. Our staff, we have them knocking on doors all the time to put smoke alarms. So fire marshal handles all of that. And they also get like fire investigation. So all of that non-response aspect, but part of what their job is what I call being a recon ranger, right? It's getting that intelligence from being out in the community and in the structures and feeding that back to our staff. So, our staff maybe has a little bit better if it comes to them going there on an incident.
Yeah. Okay. No, that all, resonates pretty good. And just a shout out for fire alarms. So we have a really good buddy that I played football with at Iowa, and his wife, she lost a child from smoke alarm kind of failure, and she's been on a crusade for a long time. And we spent some time with her about that, and just know how important that is. So anyway, if you don't have your fire alarms up, call the chief and/or your local and get some help with it. So, okay. Well, then I just, I think we got to a bunch of that. I guess we just want to make sure, it sounds like the coaching piece really identified with that. Let's talk a little bit about then the fire chief chats, because you have a media profile. So you've been out there. I don't know how many the number total shows were, but I found quite a few out there. And I'm just going to give you my pitch for what I was kind of picking up on, but I thought this was a really interesting dynamic because the kind of the mission of it, what I was getting was trying to connect on a relational basis with different members of the community, and really trying to draw out and emphasize the depth of kind of community connection that you guys have in the Brighton area. And then building some relationships there, and maybe also identifying a little bit about who you are as the chief and what you guys do, and then also networking with a lot of it was kind of business folks in different avenues. But anyway, how did the fire chief chats get started? They're kind of mini podcasts is what I was getting from.
Yeah.
And what were you doing with that? And then talk to us a little bit about your vision of community.
So it all started during COVID, right? And my heart was breaking as we were watching our businesses that were closed. And we had high frustration. I think community members were longing to see some of those informal business community leaders. And like a good fire chief, we were busy with all things COVID and keeping our staff safe and helping the community and navigate all of those things. But really, we wanted to use our platform to let, kind of showcase some of the great things that people were doing, because we were all in it together. I think that that was, one thing I learned a ton, right? I got a chance. Not many people can say no when you ask and you're the fire chief. So we're like, hey, I'm going to do this thing. I'd like to just talk to you and let's see where it goes. And so I know I learned a lot about, leadership and just talking through, just how they were handling situations, taking care of people. And so that was really our hope, was to provide some of that connection. And it gave me a chance to even connect with, we hit up this group called Bountiful Harvest, who I never would have thought that our food donations had almost tripled. Livingston County and where Brighton is above the median. We're doing just fine. And when Yvonne with Bountiful Harvest started telling me how much their use had gone up and what they needed, it just kind of realized that we got to keep talking and helping and supporting. And it's led to a lot. Our community knows that we're there for them, and because we want them to be successful. Maybe it's purely because, we're a tax funded organization, and right somewhere deep down inside that, I'm sure that has something to do with it. But, us purely as fire folks, we like action and we like to do stuff, and we want to be engaged with our community. We want to support them. And why not? Social media is free. YouTube's relatively free. It took some time and just editing and using some of our staff, but it was such a cool way. And, it's funny that we're talking about it today, because I actually had some calls this week like, hey, you want to do some follow-ups? And I'm like, yes, we do. And, we lost a couple too, just due to technology. You get a blip on our recording. So yeah, but just a cool way to connect and hit up some community leaders and use it all for good.
Yeah, no, that's a really neat kind of COVID intervention as a way to kind of help share that message a little bit. And you're really right about that. We did a couple shows last season, all in the midst of COVID, on hunger issues, and all of the resources that we talked to, they were all between 30 and 60% demand over. And it just really illustrates how many folks are really just a month away from, either being homeless or being hungry and that kind of stuff, and making those kind of choices. So, okay, well, excellent.
Well, and I just want to comment on, because Hidden Pearls started last year during COVID, kind of because of COVID. And so that's where our podcast kind of was forced into creation. But something that we kept coming up against was the feedback of seeing how like there were so many of these organizations and people out there fighting the good fight and doing everything, but the medium to let people know that they're out there sometimes isn't as active as it should be, or people just don't understand, or people are putting more into like actually feeding people than to spreading the word of what they're doing. So I think, like you were saying, social media is free, YouTube's relatively free. Like getting out there and sharing a message is pretty free and can do a ton in empowering your community. So I think it's awesome that you guys dove into the podcast platform as well.
It's like a little community service message there. So anyway, okay, let's see. Then I had you have some other certifications and some other stuff if you want to mention it. You got Code Savvy Consultants and Inspector 911. So you do some other stuff, which seems a little bit more on the prevention side, but if you want to fire up on that, what are you doing there?
Yeah, so deep down inside, I am somebody who works a lot in fire and building codes across the country. So I spent some time traveling, working with fire and building service, just in trying to keep our buildings safe for years to come. Believe it or not, we're working on fire codes and building codes. I travel in a couple of weeks to Pittsburgh to work with a bunch of peers on our 2024 national building and fire codes. And so spend a lot of energy in that arena. And out of a lot of all of this, through the years, I've been asked a lot for some technical expertise. And so back in about 2004-ish, one-ish, I started a company called Code Savvy Consultants, in which we work with other municipalities. So in Michigan, specifically around the Detroit region, there is the highest concentration of local government in the United States. So we have a lot of small towns, and they can't afford that full, robust technical assets. So a lot of the work to help them when a new building comes in or a new development is reviewed outside of their organization or department. And so we work with about 50 communities here in Michigan, some companies outside of Michigan, just in navigating code standards and keeping their buildings safe. And so it's kind of some of those technical expertise. And really Inspector 911 was one of those things that I get all this information. I'm just blessed to be able to be in the room with a lot of great people. And how do we share that information down to some new fire inspector in a rural town that just needs help? And because when I started, it's kind of a funny story. When I was about 19 and I was a full-time firefighter, a fire marshal left, and I had done some work, construction up until that point. And the chief at that time said, "Hey, we're gonna make you a fire marshal." And I'm like, all right. I think I was more excited because I was getting an 8% raise. And then I'm like, well, what do you do? And they pointed to these books. And when you see fire code and building code, it is unsexy and it's complicated and it's just a lot. And to go from kind of dual role doing all this, I phoned like a good fire guy does. And I phoned my neighboring fire marshal. And his name was Mike Evans. And I went down and saw him. I'm like, okay, I have no clue where to start. Where do I start? And, Mike bent over, he helped me out. And it's been a quite rewarding journey. And over the years, I'm really trying to we spend a lot of time and energy making buildings safe. And then we never trained firefighters what we did and how to use the stuff we put in there to help them do their jobs. So being spending a lot of energy, but to wrap a story full circle, Mike has since retired from Novi. And he's now serving as my deputy chief. So the guy that bent over backwards to help me back in 1996, 97 is now full circle working for us in Brighton after he retired. So it's a pretty cool thing.
That's awesome. That's a great story.
Yeah.
And just, trying to help the newbies out there and grow because everybody needs a hand up and somebody to help them. So, all right.
Well, let's dive over into the Kingston Valley CrossFit. So we are a very fitness focused family. So how did this come about and why? Kind of tell us the story behind it.
All right. So in the attempt to become fire chief, it was a pretty stressful time.
It sounds like you're doing a lot of things.
I stay very disciplined. How's that? I try my best. Maybe I have a severe FOMO of just missing out on something. I don't know. But when I was just about to make fire chief, I had gained quite a bit I can put on weight pretty quick and it's not pretty. And I was weighing about 260 pounds. And I had gone to a conference in a chief named Brian Crawford out of Shreveport, Louisiana, had made a statement that if you become fire chief, you better come up with a fitness routine just because the stress is unbelievable and you have to be able to balance this thing. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. Well, a CrossFit opened up right next door to my fire station where my office was. And they came over like good new neighbors and they introduced themselves and it became really just a lifelong thing for me. Lost a bunch of weight, got in really good shape. It's really transformed our organization and it's transformed a lot outside of our organization because I've seen how my performance firefighting has increased. And we get a lot of our firefighters. And over the years, I decided to partnered up with a good friend and we opened Kensington Valley within our community. And I joke when we bring new people in, I say, hey, we're kind of like the average Joes of CrossFit. We're not this put blood on the wall and beat you into submission. I want you to live a big, healthy life. And so we're really working with people on whether it's mindset, whether it's reducing stress, working out, nutrition, sleep, family connection, that community environment. And it's been awesome. And it's been a cool journey. We've struggled, we've learned, and COVID smacked us around a little bit. But our biggest growing classes are 50 plus. So ages 50 up. And, I got my parents in and they're both reaching 70. So that is like the coolest thing, right? We want people to be able to, I hate to say it, but the moment you can't sit down on the toilet anymore, your life becomes very complex. But we work with a lot of people. Their goals are very simple. I want to be able to get up and down off the ground and play with my grandkids, right? I want to be able to, my favorite so far is I want to be able to put my carry-on luggage in the overhead bin without asking anybody for help. And so I think we hit them with a lot of other fitness, but I love it when people come off their meds. I love it when the waist sizes go down, and it has been just a very fun journey. There's no doubt we're refining this whole public safety fitness, because obviously I've seen it for me. And so I try to get people to come work out instead of go play golf, and it's not working yet. Like if they want a couple hours with me, I'm like, hey, why don't we go to the gym? And a couple people will take it up with me, and we'll take a crew over sometimes from the office at lunchtime and hit the gym and get a quick 45-minute workout in and then get back. But it's something that we've ingrained in the culture in our organization. We built one fire station. We're building another one. We're replacing one with a new one, and they both have 2,000 square foot gyms, and in a sense, they used to have like 500 square feet in a treadmill. Right now, we're getting staff the equipment they need to be successful on the fire ground, and we're giving them the tools. Right, so we've got people trained. We're getting more trained, because not many people want to work out with the fire chief. Every now and then, some people do. They want to work out with their peers, and so if we can break those barriers down. But likewise, the Kensington Valley, we have just such an awesome sense of community. Every day, I mean, we got a ruck group coming out of there now, and they just go out and they go ruck around and just do crazy cool things. But once in a while, they let me coach still, and I think I just enjoy that in finding people's limits. We had one of our athletes in the 60 plus category make it to the CrossFit Games this year. So that was, yeah. So we have everybody. We have some of the best athletes in the world. And we have people, we started a beginner class called Couch to CrossFit today. So we had new people start today, and it's just really breaking it down and getting them moving. And we've gone all the way to the high end, and we've got all the new beginners. So it's cool.
I have to say that's a significantly more holistic approach to CrossFit than I have ever heard, because in every other gym that I've been through, it's blood on the wall. Like, we're going to break you. I want to feel like I'm dead to, like, the craziest stuff comes out of people's mouth. And I'm like, oh my gosh, but it's great. I mean, it's great, but I also very much appreciate the angle that you guys are taking.
Yeah. Well, and we're very aligned. So our mother organization is Thunderbird Performance, which is all about high and peak performance. And so I do mindset piece. Emma does nutrition and mobility. And so a lot of yoga, meditation, mindfulness, and all that kind of stuff. So on that same thing, which takes us to that next question, because I thought, given everything you're doing, this would be a good question. So as we're kind of wrapping this piece up, so we do with the podcast that we do with George and then the visiting player, we typically always talk a little bit about mindset, about, how they get their mind right. Because on the field, obviously they have training, their practice, all that kind of stuff. And then game day is a whole different deal for them. But getting your mind right is really important. And I think for a lot of the guys, the older they get, the mind component is even more important for them. So our kind of work is all mindfulness based with the meditation practice, like I said, with yoga. And again, a lot of breath work. Those kind of pieces, affirmations, visualizations, a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm just wondering, so in your journey, just, kind of on that mindfulness path, because you're certainly somebody that seems to pay attention to what's going on within yourself and helping to share that with others. But so kind of my questions are, I guess, in general, for somebody within this profession, what are some of the mindset, issues that they face? And what tools have you found that have been helpful for you, to kind of keep your head on straight and be focused and attention to detail, all these things that you were talking about, because you are juggling a lot of things.
Yeah, and there's no doubt in the firefighting arena, we really rely on our staff to be sharp. And it's hard day in and day out, right? You don't know when the incidents are necessarily coming in, and that fog could create some pretty tough stuff. For me personally, over the years, it'd be easy to say there's a lot of laughter in the firehouse to keep things light and soft. As you probably move up, when you walk in the room, the laughter stops most of the time. But, for me, fitness is obviously a big component. But one thing that I discovered during the last 18 months is it's very easy for me to fill my entire day with back-to-back meetings and never give that time for that check-in with staff, that movement, that self-reflection, planning, getting things done, and it almost created its own fog in itself. And so I've been pretty diligent, like Fridays. I'm pretty diligent about not scheduling meetings, and that really helps me from an administrative standpoint because I end up in conversations typically all day, but I don't have a lot of structured things. But really over the last couple of years, I find a lot of work in keeping me centered is getting out and drinking coffee and having lunches with peers and just checking in and doing that. It helps me big time professionally because I can hear what some of the best are doing with their organization. You can compare things about fire hose, fire trucks, foam, you name it, right? How you're building a fire station. But I think more importantly, you start to build some of those relationships that you can lean on when you do realize you're having some stuff going on. And it's hard because as fire chief, you have to look past the badge, and it's very easy, right? The buck stops with me. There's a lot of pressure. But it doesn't mean that I have to be Superman, and it doesn't mean that I can't be vulnerable, screw up sometimes. It's very easy to say, right, that you are the chief and build that barrier. But, over the years, a lot of reading. And if you'd have seen me at 19 years old, this cat didn't read anything but a Fire Academy book. And, now just trying to stay abreast. And there's no doubt I consume a lot of media. I love music, but I spend more time probably listening to podcasts and finding things just to make sure we're staying sharp. But in a lot of that is transcending down to my staff. I never would have thought that how to handle things would be more of my discussion than pulling hose or, how a fire truck responds or how a crew comes together. It's, walking staff through thought processes and what's okay and what's not okay. And what do you do when you have a tough incident? What do you not do? Because it's easy as the wear and tear of the fire service adds up to increased drinking, going to seclusion, a lot of those things that are just, it's bad, but you don't know it's bad and you're covering up something more. But there's no doubt that firefighters and paramedics and EMTs do tremendous things, but they see some very horrific things that just humans aren't intended to see. And so, just sometimes working with them and giving them the tools in mindset is key. I just had a conversation tonight with one of our stations. It was dinner and a conversation, and some of it was good and some of it was bad, but that mindset is definitely a big part of, hey, look, we tackle a lot of things. And you have got to have a mindset that, hey, if you're not perfect, you can't go in the gutter. You've got to keep advancing. We got to keep chipping away and keep trying to get better and learn. So I'm a big fan that I think a lot of things happen for a reason, but more importantly, what we do and what we learned from it is probably the bigger issue.
Yeah, well, no doubt. And we have this, which kind of takes us. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about, because we invited you to select a nonprofit or charity. And you've picked one that kind of relates to this field within that. But one of the things that we talk about a lot with our athletes is, there's a kind of three terms, and there's kind of from the Buddhist tradition, but modified is, it's not permanent. So whatever you're going through, if it's a really good thing, that's not what you want to hear because you want it to last forever, but it's not going to. And if it's bad, you're glad it's going to move on. But things aren't permanent, and it's not going to be perfect no matter what, as much as we try. And so it doesn't mean you don't aspire for greatness in all those kind of ways, but it gives you an opportunity to accept what is and keep working toward improvement. But at the same time, just realizing it's not going to be. And then finally, that things aren't personal. We like to tell that story in our head sometimes about it's all about me and all that kind of stuff, and/or what other people are doing is this and that. But we've realized everybody's tied up in their own stories, and just kind of take a breath. And like you said, one of our strongest little mottos in our podcast is small, consistent steps, all taken in the same direction, lead to amazing results. And so if you can just figure out what that first step is and not get too hung up on it and just keep moving forward, then you got a chance. So, well, thank you for sharing that between mindset and CrossFit. And if you guys ever need a little yoga instruction with some breath work or meditation, next time we're in Michigan, we'll let you know and or invite us up. We'd be glad to do something. So anyway, so good luck with all that. All right, Emily Lou.
All right. So part of our show, same way we did last year, we're kind of identifying different nonprofits. This year we have Michael choosing one. And so he chose the Yellow Rose campaign. And what they do, they're removing the stigma of emotional health issues while linking Michigan's fire service with resources, training, and peer support. So, Michael, why is this so important? What is happening? What is or was happening that made this program or campaign come into being?
Yeah, so the fire service over the years has been dubbed a pretty macho thing. And, as you went to tough incidents, as you dealt with difficult things, the best way is to just shove it down inside, don't ever speak of it, and bottle it up is pretty much the way it was when I started and many years before. And one of the things you kind of heard me talk about how I love to go coffee, buy lunch, and talk to peers, and started to discover checking in with some peers that they had some recent retirements or people close to retirement or just middle career suicides within their organization. And, a bunch of us as fire chiefs are like, okay, what do we do? How do we start to help? Because what are we doing wrong? And so we started looking. At the time, I was president of the Michigan Association of Fire Chiefs, which is a beautiful platform to be able to work with and pull a lot of people together. And so we started pulling some people together and saying, okay, what do we do and how do we start? Well, I think, Coach, just like you said, you just got to start getting momentum. And so literally, we started presenting at conferences. We started talking about removing the stigma, and we got some of the best people, and I got out of the way. The chiefs that started leading this thing were incredible, and they started pulling out and giving tools. And we ran into a lot of things and issues, and they were really hard. But it's hard to reprogram 100 years of tradition with firefighters and chiefs, and it was difficult. But I'm going to tell you, when you stand in a room with 200 fire chiefs and there's 50 of them sobbing as they're working through this, you're starting to go somewhere right. And so one of the first times that we rolled it out, we actually do a pledge to the chiefs in which they're pledging to take care of their staff and work in their organization to demystify it and tell their staff that, hey, it's okay to ask for help. Right. And as chiefs, you've got to develop systems. And so we've run into a ton of stuff, right? You think of a standard community across anywhere in the United States, they have what they call as an EAP, an employee assistance program. And 9 times out of 10, if a firefighter or law enforcement calls them, they have no clue how to deal with that person. Right. And EAP is used to business workers, and it's just not typically designed. So, one of the very simple steps is, Chief, you've got to go build a relationship with your EAP and make sure they're ready to handle your staff. And if you don't, you got to find something, because this isn't going to fix itself at a kitchen table. It's not going to fix itself. And you got to remove the stigma and say it's okay. And it's hard, right? Because you judge incidents, oh, that run wasn't that bad, but you never know what triggered in those humans. And the biggest thing we wanted is our people to come talk to us. And then we wanted to be able to direct them. But we gave that oath to those chiefs. They came up one-on-one with a couple peer support folks, started reading this pledge. And I've never seen anything like it. And it was incredible to see that movement and that pledge. And so, our chiefs that are heading up the Yellow Rose campaign have done some incredible things across the state. They're out training. In fact, I talked to one of them today. They're out doing some training up north in the Traverse City area, helping fire departments demystify and prepare and really try to give folks tools, because that complexity of incident that they're running, that staff are going to, is incredible. And it could be something, it could be just the culmination of 20 years. You imagine going on 20 calls a day times 25 years, right? That stuff adds up. And so how we take care of our people, right? The fire service has a lot of coined phrases, but one is everybody goes home. And we typically think of that as everybody goes home from an incident, right? We do everything we can to make sure, but to me, everybody goes home goes far beyond. And as chief, if I'm not doing my job to take care of that employee in the long run, outside of the emergency, then I'm not doing my job. And so I'm so grateful that you guys are giving the donation, because Yellow Rose is just something that we have the right people doing incredible things, from peer support training to sending people up to train organizations. There's 1,000 fire departments in Michigan. But the cool thing is, if you look at their webpage, they're spreading the word outside of Michigan, and other states are copying it, right? The International Association of Fire Chiefs issued what they called a yellow ribbon report, very similar, very common context. And our peers down south, New Mexico and a couple other states are mirroring it, which is so exciting to see, because I think everybody's struggling. I think one of my phrases right now is, everybody has something going on. We don't know what it is always. And so how do we just have compassion? How do we provide that person energy? How do I just love on that person? And it's hard for a big burly firefighter to love on another firefighter, but I can tell you what isn't love. And so how do we just support them, give them the tools, because the job is hard enough and we don't need to make it harder in the firehouse. And so being there as a supportive, that is like, when I started, there's no way that conversation, it's probably like a locker room for NFL football. There's no way that conversation's necessarily happening. But we're starting to get there, because really those suicides rocked those fire departments. They rocked the community. And, there's left behind family members, there's left behind fire departments. That breaks my heart. And so if we can keep working and make sure one of those doesn't happen again, that's pretty cool. And so any support that we give them, and it's a continual thing, because we forget, we got to be reminded, we learn more tips and tricks, we give them more tools. Right. You're talking through yoga, right? I'm hearing more and more organizations that are doing mindful breathing, mindful this, and it's so cool to see that they're starting to transform one station, one engine company, one ladder company, one department at a time. It's cool.
And so just so everybody knows, just to explain the name a little bit, but the yellow rose, in the rose, it represents confidentiality. And then the color yellow represents positivity, optimism, and honor. And they're saying is saving those who save others.
Yeah. And I just was going to identify that. We did a show last year with Solomon Thomas, whose sister committed suicide a couple of years ago, and really had a devastating impact on him. And Solomon has really come out, and the NFL in a lot of ways has that same kind of macho, because, you're talking about some big burly dudes and they're paid to be really violent and physical, and having that kind of mental health thing. And so the NFL and the NFLPA have really stepped in over the last year, and especially with the COVID stuff going on, have started to implement some pieces and at least trying. And I think some of the dialogue or the terminology that I read in some of your materials is trying to change the culture, make it okay, take away the stigma, which is all true, because unless people raise their hand and ask for help, and it's really our job to make it safe and even to inquire from those individuals. So, well, a lot of great work. So we'll get hooked up with you on that one and make sure that we get our donation out to that. And then
if anybody listening or watching is interested in it, we'll have all the links in the show notes, and we'll have all the information of how to get involved and also how to get in contact with everybody.
Yeah. So thank you, Chief. Okay. So this show is actually going to go broadcast on 9/11, which is the 20th year remembrance of the events of September 11, 2001. So I was kind of thinking about that. We kind of jotted this down a couple months ago, I've been thinking about it. And kind of the more I thought about it, there was more to think about in that way. And so I think folks, we've already kind of talked with our audience a little bit. So this year we're doing kind of a balance we're doing a program with veterans, letting them pick, and or first responders. And so Chief, you're kind of our first responders, we said, and we wanted to go that route with 9/11, just because in my mind I still remember exactly where I was, who I was with, and just watching, kind of unending stream of, national broadcast news of the towers, and then to the Pentagon, and then to Pennsylvania and all that kind of stuff. And it really was overwhelming. And then just, I think all of us that have been around that long kind of recognize how it changed our world and how we lived in the United States, for sure. So anyway, so just we wanted to just do a little bit of history and stats. So before we talk a little bit more about kind of your perspective from being on the force and being part of that community, we wanted to do a little bit about just kind of remembering the lives lost and how our country and our people were impacted. So if you want to read a little piece.
On September 11th, 19 militants associated with the Islamic extremist group Al-Qaeda hijacked 4 airplanes and carried out suicide attacks against targets in the United States. 2 of the planes were flown into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City. A 3rd plane hit the Pentagon just outside Washington, D.C. And the 4th plane, Flight 93, crashed in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Almost 3,000 people were killed during 9/11 terrorist attacks, which triggered major U.S. initiatives to combat terrorism around the world. A total of 2,996 people were killed in the 9/11 attacks, including the 19 terrorist hijackers aboard the 4 airplanes. Citizens of 78 countries died in New York, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania that day. At the World Trade Center, 2,763 people died after the 2 planes slammed into the Twin Towers. That figure includes 343 firefighters and paramedics, 23 New York City police officers, and 37 Port Authority police officers who were struggling to complete an evacuation of the buildings and save the office workers trapped on higher floors. At the Pentagon, 189 people were killed, including 64 on American Airlines Flight 77, the airliner that struck the building. On Flight 93, 44 people died when the plane crash landed in Pennsylvania. So we got this from the History Channel website. And if you guys are looking for more information, the History Channel is running 3 documentaries covering the events of 9/11, which will start airing on September 10th.
So this day, as we reflect to remember, let us remember all of the courageous individuals who lost their lives, whether acting in their professional role or just regular citizens who reached out, tried to help, and or stood up to protect others, even at the cost of their own lives. Plus the many hundreds of others who were wounded and injured that day, as well as the family members, friends, and colleagues of those lost, who had to face the days and years ahead without their loved ones. That day changed our country and all of us in many ways. And I kind of wanted to end with a quote which kind of captured it. There was a lot of chaos and a lot of disarray. And I was really thinking about it as it reflected, when we had COVID last year as well, because there's a lot of separation at times in our country, and it's felt that way over the last couple of years for a lot of different reasons. But anyway, a quote from John Kerry, remember the hours after September 11 when we came together as one. It was the worst day that we have ever seen as a country, but it also brought out the best in all of us. And I hope in some way that, because I've been to the memorial in New York, and it's really powerful, especially remembering those days and all the people that were lost in that. And so kind of when I was reading about all, kind of putting all this together, that quote really kind of, inspired me to think more about unity and connection and try to remember the things in our lives that connect us rather than all the things that sometimes we focus on that disconnect us. So with all that, so this is back in 2001 in September. So Michael, I'm just going to let you kind of go with it. I guess the things I'm just, that day obviously had to have some kind of impact. And as you and I were talking before the show, you talked a little bit about the days after and what a big impact that was, but maybe just kind of tell us the events, and I guess just clarify for us how many years and what your role was at the time, and then just how those days unfolded a little bit, and then kind of where it's gone since then.
Yeah, so I was about 5 or 6 years on job. I was a firefighter paramedic, and we were actually in paramedic recertification training. And, we take it very seriously within Brighton to never forget and continue to train and tell the stories of our new people. We actually have a pretty detailed memorial at our headquarters station with a piece of steel from the trade towers. So our newest recruits in our academy weren't even alive, and it's hard to explain to them what happened. But so I'm in paramedic refresher training, and we get a page on a beeper to call headquarters, and there were a couple cell phones, but not like today. We found a TV in the paramedic room that we could kind of get on a standard channel with an antenna because they didn't have cable. And it's about when the second tower got struck. And so working outside of Detroit, there's some different population groups. It didn't take long, and we were all ordered back into work. So we stopped training. And I know that I worked about a 72-hour straight. And we had initially responded just to some of the chaos that was kind of happening within our jurisdiction just from tension, odd events. But you know what hit me like a ton of bricks is when you got to the station, had your gear, and you checked in with your captain and, hey, where do you want us? And they put you on a truck, and sitting next to you is a police officer in full riot gear. And, right, we're the good guys, let alone having to ride around with a police officer in riot gear. And it was a godsend that we had him for, about a 24-hour period working alongside us. But, it was tense. And, certain things that I remember, obviously, I think as firefighters, we knew that at that point in time, what was going on and the devastation that was occurring. I remember we put together a list on who was willing to go to New York, because I think just about any firefighter would have got on a fire engine and started driving, because that fire department was decimated. And you really look over the years. 20 years is incredible that it's gone that fast. And to keep telling that story and keep reliving not only our personal, but as I've met more people who were there and heard their stories and consumed, it's an amazing thing. Chief Gansey, who perished after, I believe, the second tower collapsed. When the first tower collapsed, the command group was close to a place where they could get shelter in a parking deck. And as soon as it was done, right, the chief comes out and he's meeting with his deputy, and his role was to go to the pile and start getting his people out. And, you can hear through the countless individual heroism from those in uniform and those without, as you relive, whether it's the documentaries or you hear some of the stories firsthand, the heroism is unbelievable. The amount of lives saved, I don't think we'll ever know the number. But those firefighters showed up on a bright sunny day in FDNY or at the Pentagon, ready to work, never thinking that they were going to go to something that hellacious. And, if you listen to the radio traffic and you know what you're listening to, or you watch some of the film on Chief Pfeiffer, the first incident commander there, they were going to work. I mean, they knew the gravity of the situation, but they were going to work and they were going to save lives, and they did. But for me, when I look at 9/11, it's amazing what humans can do, both our firefighters, law enforcement, dispatchers, those that went up and down the towers, those at the Pentagon. But, I still think through Flight 93, right? It was Americans in an airplane with that famous line, "Let's roll," who forced their way in and stopped whatever that plane was going to. You think through the stories of our air traffic controllers in the work they did, probably saving even more lives, getting the aircraft on the ground. And one of these days, I'm going to remember the town in Canada, but there's a town in Canada on a small island that took something like 12 international flights because the US closed its air traffic.
Just read that. So I have it. I can look it up if you want to know, but
but you look at that story, they don't have the hotels, they don't have the lodging, they don't have the food. And what was it that took care of their fellow man? It was each other. And I think when it comes to 9/11, I can relive it. I can almost put myself in their shoes. And I am so grateful for the men and women who did what they did that day. But really, when I look at September 11th, I remember September 12th more. It was right. September 10th, I think we were still arguing over the presidential election, right? Remember, we had hanging chads and all that mess that we had with the Bush Gore, right, election. And so 9/11 was obviously horrific. And then we get into September 12th, and it was different, man. You checked on people that you hadn't talked to. You opened the door. The amount of outpouring support that we got as a fire department from our community was just incredible. And it continued, right? And it wasn't just because we were in uniform, it was all across. And I think, I hate to say that I long for that simplicity that day. I don't ever want to see September 11th ever happen again. But that unity that America had was awesome. And that's what I remember. And, so when we do our memorial, when we do our, every year we, up till the last two, typically the Saturday before 9/11, we do a 5K, and it was intended to be our version of a stair climb. And, we had a couple hundred, near 300 runners in it to remember 9/11, from military, firefighters in turnout gear, flags, vests, people doing their first 5K. And then, we did the day of. And really, our goal is to never forget, right? I think we do need to pause and remember. As a fire chief, I can get bitter because turn on the radio on September 10th. Now it'll be a Saturday, so it won't be. But, last year, 2 years ago, it's the same flow. That there is very little interruption in our day to remember that it's September 11th. And in part, that just breaks me a little bit, but it just reminds me how much we have to keep working. Brighton schools tomorrow night, it's their red, white, and blue game. We're going to have our ladder truck up, American flag, our honor guard's going to bring the colors out, and they're going to pause in the middle of pregame for a moment of silence. So, I think in part, I think the fire service carries this burden or weight. It's not a burden, I shouldn't say that, but they carry this weight that we have to truly keep carrying the message. But the one thing that I keep reminding is September 12th, it wasn't the fire department, it was the community that came together. And that's the part that I think as a fire service, we keep striving to do with the memorials. And that's to keep our communities together. It's to keep that focus, because man, what a disgrace if we ever forget what those people did that day. I mean, right, I can be angry, I can be, right, the whole war, the whole thing, and being attacked caught us off guard. And I hope to God that never happens again. But on the other side, I have just an absolute awe of what the human spirit did that day.
Okay.
Good job, Chief.
That kind of handles it, yeah. So, well, let's see. I had some stuff on kind of lessons learned. I think you hit on all that kind of stuff really clearly. And I just appreciate that perspective a little bit about kind of where you were sitting and what you saw. And two, just over the years too, how we have seen kind of that notion of how important it was and what a huge impact it had. But then, kids got to get to soccer or got to go to work, and, all of a sudden you're kind of not thinking about it in the same way. And I think, one of the things with this being our kickoff show for this year, and we're going to have a vet or another first responder on each of our, shows, it'll give us a little bit of a chance, because we're going to be talking with guys that have been part of the 20-year legacy from 9/11 with the fight on terrorism and all that. And so we'll be unpacking that as we go. So really appreciate the kind of day of and day after perspective. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you. So I guess anything else? I don't want to cut you off in any way about 9/11, but I thought you really not much follow up there. So I guess one of the things we like to do then, because we've talked a lot about some of the challenges that you face and your team, I guess, faces, and the things that you've seen. We always like to also end kind of on a thought about hopefulness and that kind of thing. So, and I know it's probably got something to do with CrossFit and being exercising, but I don't know. But anyway, so what are some of the things as we're rolling into this fall of 2021? We all thought kind of COVID was over, but then it's not. And so we're still having to deal with that. There's all kinds of other issues going around with the environment and that thing. But what are the things, from the fire chief's chair that you're kind of maybe seeing that give you hope on a daily basis?
Nothing is more pure of hope than when our crews get to tell us they delivered a baby, right? And I think that we as fire chiefs get to see some of the most beautiful things in the world, and our crews have that experience. But just due to some staffing issues, the other day I got to drive a fire truck to a run, which maybe brings out my inner spirit. But when I think about hope, man, okay, so we went through some really weird stuff, and we saw some really bizarre stuff of a lot of humans, and it's still getting complex, right? I don't think any of us ever thought that we'd be having to tell people, get outside and get some sunshine on your face. Like, you need it. You're working from home, you're eating from home, you dial in all your groceries, you never leave your house. Like, listen, we love you, but you get outside. But, when I look at hope, who would have thought that we would have seen such collaboration at so many weird levels? Most people don't realize what was happening. I mean, the amount of work to get vaccines in arms as fast as we did on a health department system across this country that was never designed for it. Like, it shows me how powerful it can be. I mean, how many businesses have completely pivoted and stayed open, right? That have made just some outstanding things come to fruition through putting people in a room and saying, okay, it is what it is. Now, what are we going to do about it? And how do we adjust? Maybe it's that halftime speech coach gives to get the team to adjust for the second half so they don't end up with a 47-0 game and winning. But, I am such a believer in the power of collaboration. And if I were to say that there's ever to give hope, right, when you're sitting down trying to figure out something, get the right people in the room and just sit back and watch what happens. Because it's amazing sometimes when we bring people together and they start talking. And so I guess if I were to ever say hope, right, first off, there's nothing more pure than a baby being born. And the mom might not think about it because, trust me, you don't want, like, nobody ever sits there and says, hey, I'm really hoping the fire department delivers my baby this week. That, they have a picture of a hospital and primary care, but there's nothing more pure of that coming into life. And so, man, life is short, and let's just go live it, because whatever you're being handed, let's just figure out how to tackle it and keep moving, because it's way too short to get fixed on a bunch of this stuff.
Okay.
Well, that's
Spoken.
pretty amazing. Thank you for sharing all that. And I guess as we start to wrap up, I hope that our collaborative efforts, we're going to be donating to the Yellow Rose, and we are also sending you 3 tickets to the Niners versus Lions game. So you can wear blue, it's okay. But yeah, so we wanted to do that for you so we can bring you in and kind of extend our gratitude for being on the show and sharing your message. And then, I mean, all of the things that you are doing, from the health and the wellness to the mindfulness to demystifying this kind of healthy masculinity. So we just want to say thank you so much.
Yeah, and thanks too. And I guess I'll just roll on with your notion of hope. I guess the stories about human courage and connectedness and how people reached out for each other, even at their own risk. And you're right about the whole collaboration. And I think about the birth thing as kind of a metaphor for our lives, right? I mean, you kind of talked about the difference between you at 19 and the stages of your career. And I think that's kind of something we all go through. And so in some way, each day is kind of a new birth, and we have the opportunity to kind of seize it and enjoy it and share with others, and maybe spread just a little bit more love and kindness than was there the day before. So we can kind of keep working on that. So, Chief, we appreciate your time very, very much. We hope you enjoy the game. We'll be on site there. I don't know if we'll get a chance to see you beforehand. I'll shoot you a text or something. Then we'll kind of see if we can. We'd love to do that. But I got the old tickets digitally, and I'll shoot those over to you tomorrow when I get them. And hope you enjoy the game very much, and good luck and be safe. And again, if you looking for any yoga or meditation kind of thing, let us know. We'd love to support. Sounds like you had a lot of cool things going on. So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. And thanks for the donation. And I did do some background check with my #1 football fan at my fire department, who's going to tell me the truth. And he says the 49ers tight end is the best in the league. So
we think so too. You know what?
Yeah.
We're a little biased, but
he actually had him on his fantasy football league. So I'm like, all right.
Go. Well, fantasy never lies, I guess. So those guys care a lot about that. So we're good. We'll give them a head nod for us. We appreciate it. So, all right. Well, thanks, Chief. Take care. Be well. And then hopefully we'll get a chance to see you on Sunday.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. Thank you for sticking around for that episode. Obviously today, as this episode is airing, it is 9/11. So if you have the space, if you have the time, definitely take it and just reflect and remember, maybe take some deep breaths and think about the people who we lost and think about how our world has drastically changed, and also just how we can continue to never lose sight of the community and the fellowship that we can lean into, because we are the USA, and I think we are capable of anything that we put our mind to. So any closing thoughts?
Oh, just, it's, as I mentioned in the show, I remember exactly where I was at, what I was doing, and who I was with as I watched the towers burn. In the 20 years since then it's taken a toll on the United States. And so I guess, again, just like Emma said, maybe just pause and reflect, take a little bit of time. And again, just committed to increasing love and kindness in the world, and trying to find ways that we can come together to make this entire world a better, safer, kinder place for everybody. So thank you, and thank you to everybody, fans, friends, followers, and anything else you want to call yourself. We appreciate it very much. So thank you.
So if you want to get a little bit more involved with us, you can follow us on Instagram. All of our social links will be linked below, but we are Hidden Pearls Podcast on Instagram. We are on Twitter as Hidden Pearls Pod. We are also on TikTok now. BK is all over TikTok. Hidden Pearls Podcast. You can find us on YouTube. It's actually under Thunderbird Performance, but if you Google anything, and then we're Hidden Pearls Podcast on any of the podcasting platforms. If you need some yoga, if you need some mindfulness, you can go to our YouTube or to thunderbirdperformance.com. We are implementing our Ask George section again, so definitely want to bring that back. But if you want to submit a question, you can do that at info@thunderbirdperformance.com and just put hashtag Ask George in the subject line. And then if you would be so kind to leave us a comment or a review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. It really helps us to get our message out and to help reach other people who might need to hear things about any of the things that Chief or TJ or George or me or Pops was talking about tonight. So we just want to say thank you so much, and your efforts to help spread our message and just to keep the community growing. So with that, go Niners, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.